Join me, and together we will unravel the mysteries of the world during Dr. X's Half Hour of Power.
The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. That's H.P. Lovecraft. And I'm Dr. X. This is Dr. X's Half Hour of Power. Back again with another strange episode featuring a dear good friend of mine in the stations. Yes, tonight, everybody, feast your eyes on Handsome Steve of the Hive Scum podcast. As you can see from his shirt with the hood on it. Steve, how are you today?
Hello, Mr. X. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Thank you for making time. You have a very busy schedule, not only as a community hero fighting fires, but also as a space explorer, a commander of mechs. Tell them about your project.
I don't want to get too deep into it, but it is a tabletop skirmish battle game involving giant mechanized machines, in vein of games such as BattleTech, but it takes much less time. And that's pretty much the elevator pitch I got for you on that.
Flames of Orion. Take my money. Now, I love robots, but we're here to talk about the supernatural.
Yes.
Stephen, give it to me, baby.
Okay. Well, so I have a few stories, and none of them are too fantastic, but a brush with the paranormal, some might say. Well, we can start with right off the top. My job. I work as a firefighter. I work on an ambulance a lot, and this is something we talk about sometimes at the station, just amongst ourselves. And I kind of would like to get your input on this, Mr. X. So obviously horrible things happen in the back of an ambulance sometimes. And we always say, like, do those kind of things carry over in the ambulance back to where we stay at night in the firehouse? Because we've had many happenings. There is a station in the town that I work in that is known by all the firefighters as the haunted firehouse. And it comes with, we stay there for 24 hours. So we're there at night, sleeping overnight in this building, and you'll be laying in your bed and you hear something out in that hallway. You'll hear someone open the main door to the upstairs, and you'll hear someone walking up and down those stairs, and there is no one awake doing those things. And it's not just me that has heard it. There are many other people that have heard, footsteps in the night, doors opening with no one being there. And I've had my own weird interactions, around dusk, where I'm working in the engine area, like where the fire truck and the ambulance and stuff like that is. And I swear I see someone moving at the front of the truck. Looks like they're going upstairs. I go up there like, oh, who was downstairs? None of us. We were all here. We're all sitting here the whole time. What are you talking about?
This is very interesting. You bring up something I have never considered. We talk about the residual energy of a crime scene or a terrible accident, but what happens when we put that into transportation? That's what you're saying, right? Perhaps this residual energy not just soaks into the walls of the building, but does it follow those who are actually involved, or inside a vehicle such as an ambulance or a hearse? Does the energy reside and travels with it there? Interesting, Stephen.
That's a good point. Because I our good friend Arcane Brian, he has talked about how much of the paranormal could be tied to not so much a soul or an entity, but a moment in time, like whether it's a very emotional thing or a very, very traumatic thing, and that impact lives in space and time kind of perpetually, it like can that be transferred, I guess? Like, oh, if that happens in the back of an ambulance in the middle of driving it, like, where does that energy go? Does it stop in that spot in the road? Does it link itself to that vehicle? When the vehicle stops, does it kind of become grounded wherever that vehicle goes? It leaves a lot of questions. And this is all, I don't know one way or another about the paranormal or the unknown, only what I've heard and seen, but it's a
Which
lot of
is
good
the most
questions.
important first-hand accounts of the supernatural.
Yes.
And as I say to all of our guests, Steve, I believe you. I wouldn't put you on here if I thought you were a jester or a charlatan of sorts. So let's dig a little deeper. Stephen, what did you actually experience?
So in the firehouse myself, I have heard footsteps of people when I know for a fact no one else is up, awake, moving around. The floors are very creaky. Yes, it could be something else, but it sounds like dead stop footfalls going through the building. It's a very clear noise. You would know it anywhere if you worked in that building. And no one is awake, no one's moving around, and it's clear as day someone walking through the building. Doors opening, doors slamming. Uh, Again, out of the corner of your eye, what looks to be a person moving across in between vehicles. You're standing at one end of the garage, and you can see almost a shadow walking across the front of the garage, and they disappear behind, another vehicle or a cabinet or something like that. And then if you were to go to look around the other side, there's no one there.
Now, does your hook and ladder brethren have any origin stories as to what these spirits might be?
No, we talk about it, and some people, you ask them about it, they'll say it's not haunted. You know how many years we've been messing with people in these firehouses, how many years we've been, and there's stories of them going to the firehouse when, one ambulance is out on a call and the other crew shows up, they take all the chairs and flip them upside down and play pranks on them. But that doesn't even register as creepy or paranormal to us, because you can tell when something's a joke and when something feels real. But there's no history, as far as we know, of anything happening in the firehouse or someone being hurt or injured or something happening in the building to cause these things. I just very recently, I worked there overnight, and there's a certain space in the second floor. It always just like it, not darkness, but it feels there's something off about it. And there's a chair in that section of the room, because the chairs sit in a crescent in front of the TV. Anytime I ever sit there, it feels very off. I try to not sit in that spot, but when everyone's sitting in there, you got to take what seat you can get. And the last time I was there, I felt like someone was staring at the back of my head right behind me the whole time. The whole time I sat there for probably an hour. No matter what I did, I got up, I would look around, obviously no one's there, but it just felt like eyes in the back of my head.
When it comes to experiencing the supernatural, the paranormal, Steve, would you consider yourself a sensitive type or just a regular old Joe who experienced some things?
I would consider myself a regular old Joe. I don't think I'm attuned to whatever frequency it is that people that are more sensitive to it are. I feel things, and when you go into certain spaces, you can always kind of get a sense of something that's going on there, but nothing out of the ordinary, I think.
A lot of things to chew on there. A lot of things to chew on. Do you yourself believe in ghosts?
Absolutely.
This has sealed the deal for you. The haunting of the firehouse.
I think it's haunted. I 100% think it's haunted. I have one other story about the firehouse, and then I'll put that to rest. But a friend of mine at work, I work with him pretty regularly. He swears to this day, and he still gets. You ask him to tell you the story, the hairs on his arms stand up. And he was working. He's working on the truck. He heard someone at the back of the truck doing something. And he turned and he said, "Hey," the guy he was working with, his name was Jim. He said, "Hey, Jimbo, you okay back there? You need any help?" And he hears clear as day, "No, I'm good." That he thinks nothing of it, goes upstairs. Jimbo's sitting at the kitchen table at the upstairs table.
Mm.
He
That was
says,
no Jimbo.
that was no Jimbo, and there was no one downstairs.
So when you experience these things, what happens inside of you? Is this a fear, as I spoke of in the beginning, or have you just learned to live with it while you're on the clock?
It's one of those things you just pretend isn't there. You just
Mm.
ignore it. But the paranormal definitely pulls up some kind of, the animal in your brain, the fear of the unknown, the fear, like it's like being in the dark, that you don't know what's in front of you, but like not knowing is almost scarier than what it actually could be.
Absolutely. I don't believe those who say they're not afraid of the dark. I think that's inherent in all of us as a species.
Absolutely.
My word.
Um,
Hauntings from the firehouse. Do they soak in, or is the residual transmitted just by you and your folks all being there carrying around these wisps of critical times?
yeah,
That
that's a good point. Does a traumatic event kind of hover over you? How does it sit with you? Because I've had my share of, seeing some not nice things, and those things sit very heavy with you for a long time, and whether or not, it might not even mean much to you, but like there's just an air of something around you for a little bit.
and that's where I lean, Stephen. Not that this show is about me, but as I get older, it's as you say, the air of the things, almost like a musk or some sort of static that biologically one may put off in times of distinct uh, terror, violence, gore.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Well, I have another place that was, I can't say it was haunted. I'm not an expert, but the old Hive Scum studio in Enfield, Connecticut. It was in one of the oldest buildings in the city, the
Ah,
old townhouse that was converted into, it's converted into loft apartments and things like that. But we had a space in the basement, and you'd go, just to give you a picture of what that space looked like. You'd go in through the outside, go through a side door. It would go into like a general staircase down into the basement, and there was a light sensor on the wall. So when you walked into the stairwell, you'd open the door and the hallway light would turn on. Our room was right inside that hallway. You'd go in, again, a light sensor, all the sensors in the building. So lights could just turn off on you if
hmm,
you weren't moving, or you might go back to go into that hallway and the light would be off.
sure.
So it made it very spooky at night. Very spooky, because you'd go to leave, you'd turn the lights off, and you'd go in this very creepy old basement hallway that they kind of put some wood floors down, try to make it look nice, but you still know it's an old hallway,
Sure.
and it's just pitch black. So it's always very spooky, just in general, let alone the creepy thing in our room. So our room, it was a large brick lined wall, and they put down some floating floors, but this building's probably almost 200 years old at this point. And there was one corner in that room that always felt off. It always felt like it was darker than the rest of the room. It always felt like someone was sitting in that corner
Yes.
staring out at you. It always felt like that. And we had, moments of just things falling off shelves, things falling from, that had no business falling on the floor, but in that corner, they would just fall on their own. And we one time we even did a recording. We had a video recording interview that we did there, and there were orbs caught on the video
Oh my.
footage.
The proof is in the pudding.
The proof is there. And I would be there late at night by myself, and the only way to get through that, like that inner fear, like we talked about, would you'd have to put on some music, you'd have to have a video, you'd have to have something going on to like kind of overwhelm your senses so you weren't feeling that energy that was definitely in that room. And it always was coming from the same spot. It always felt like there was someone staring at you from that same corner in the room every time you were in there. And Brian's been there. Brian sensed it. Brian sensed it immediately when he went there. And I never really pried out of him what it was or what he felt, or but he knew that something happened in that building. He knew there was something going on in that building, in that spot. He even named the spot before we ever even brought it up.
Oh boy.
And it just had a bad vibe to it.
It strikes home for me. In my rock and roll days in New London, Connecticut, we had a practice space that was formerly a bathhouse, and a small pool existed in the band room, abandoned of course, but there was a chill in a corner. You never went to that corner. Nobody put their gear in that corner, and it was just understood as that's the corner of nothingness. And you did get that feeling, that energy, really.
Yeah.
Almost an electric buzz, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. It's an almost tangible thing.
Oh, yes, tangible indeed. I've never seen any sort of full body manifestations or anything like that, but the vibe, as the kids say, the vibe was off, man.
Yes, I agree with you. I've never seen a real whole body entity or anything like that, but the feeling that you get, you kind of know it. And speaking of orbs, when I purchased my house is very old. I live in a 1880 Victorian home.
Ah.
And when I moved in, I figured with the house being so old, there might be something weird going on. I never felt anything too weird. There's some spots where I get a little like you feel something, but it's never been bad. It's never been negative. But when I finally met my neighbors that live behind me, they said, "Oh, well, did you know that your house was previously owned by witches?" They would do seances in the yard, like back before I owned the house, probably 2 owners before this. They had a whole bunch of trees in the yard, and they would do fully naked seances in the backyard. And
looks like I missed out on a good time.
Right? A good party. And so, you had these people living in the house that were definitely a touch to the other side or in some way engaging with the unknown.
The unknown, yes.
And they've shown me videos that they have of their back cameras on their porches looking out at their backyard, and you can see my porch from the backyard. And you can see clear as day orbs in those videos on my back porch. And if there was ever a spot where I ever felt weird, it would be in my kitchen where that door is that goes to that back porch.
That goes to that area.
And Brian, before I ever brought it up to Brian, I asked Brian directly, I said, when you've been to my house, is there anything going on? He goes, no, there's nothing going on with your house. And he said, well, it was a little weird in the back in the kitchen, but that, besides that, it's nothing bad. And I was like, all right, well, I think that tells me a lot.
Just a bit of a witch's glaze on that area.
Yes.
Nothing too permeating, nothing too fearful. Just possibly, as you said, they have lifted the veil or made a little bit of a weak portal in that area.
Yes. Parted the veil, as they say.
I like your approach to this, where you continue to say, I'm not an expert, but I have felt the vibe. And I think that's the best we can do here. Not to be so skeptical that our mind is not open to something being more than just what we perceive with our 2 eyes here, but maybe something lingers, setting off that little pineal gland, where we can maybe unlock our powers someday and become more of a Brian, more of a diviner's tool. Well, that's interesting to bring him up, that he's felt things in both of those areas.
Yes, he is my go-to paranormal friend.
Well, He will also be my go-to paranormal friend as we both attend Arcane Con.
Yes, coming up. It's only a month away.
In November. Yes, only a month away. By the time this airs, it'll be right down the street, and hopefully we can do a little exploration together.
Oh, that would be great.
Yes, and have a little round table of all of the folks together about what's going on, particularly in that church that we'll be playing games in.
Yes, yeah, the church. I imagine there's something going on in that church there.
We will be attending Arcane Con in Northampton, Massachusetts, put on by our friend Arcane Brian. Stephen will be there, I'll be there, and a couple of other friends, rolling dice, sipping ice, and talking about the outre, just like we do here every episode on Dr. X's Half Hour of Power. Stephen, we are almost at that 30-minute mark, and I want to thank you. And I'll tell you once again, I believe you. Did you have a parting tale for us?
A parting tale. I think that's all the big ones. I have a few other stories, but they're not as grand, and I think not as linked to me personally. They're a tale of a place I lived with other people recounting their tales. But we can always return another day, and I could give you more.
There will be a sequel to Handsome Steve, and perhaps we can bring on that whole bunch of you up there, Arcane Brian, you, and the rest of the Hive scum under the dice crew.
Oh, that would be great.
Steve, on that note, why don't you tell the viewers at home where they can find out more about the wonderful things that you do in terms of gaming?
Oh, you can go check out my website. It's underthedice.com. You can see pretty much everything I do over there. The Flames of Orion is on there. I have a blog that I update probably quarterly at this point. And you can find my web store where you can purchase the little things that I release. There should be a link over to the Hive Scum podcast there as well. And if not, you can search on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever it is you use to listen to your podcasts. You can search Hive Scum podcast and it should come right up.
Dr. X is a big fan. I listened to it on my daily commute to the WHBA TV 13 Fairhaven television station. Stephen, you're a good egg, as they say, and I appreciate your friendship and your willingness to share your experiences with the other side.
Thank you, Dr. X. It's been a pleasure, and I truly value and cherish your friendship.
Now that's the true magic, isn't it? Friendship, Stephen.
That's right, friendship.
Back at you, my man. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed another half hour of power. We thank our station, WHPA TV 13, Fairhaven. And in conclusion, I say, good night and stay weird.